Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
Financial advisor Scott Beasley knows time spent with family is everything. As a founder of Beasley Wealth Management, his mission is to give clients the freedom to enjoy time with family without the burden of financial concerns. A local of Lawrenceburg, Scott deeply values building relationships with clients, ensuring they make informed decisions concerning asset management, tax planning, and retirement planning. Offering a free initial consultation, Beasley Wealth Management helps clients pursue their aspirations with confidence.
There's a reason owners Tyler and Cindy McDowell chose the name In Service for their towing business. They did because it's their goal to be in service for you on the day that you need them the most. In-Service Towing is now known far and wide for their response time because minutes matter when you're broken down. Or their 24/7 availability, you can call them anytime for service. Their professional team with years of experience and their fairness, plus their know-how in dealing with the unexpected. But the thing that In-Service is known best for is how they treat their customers, and that's like family. When you need them, call them 931-843-9098.
Jack Davis Insurance, located at 201 West Gain Street in Lawrenceburg, has you covered through life's obstacles. Jack Davis specializes in group insurance for businesses and institutions of all sizes. With coverage for life, accidents, cancer, critical illness, short-term disability, dental, and vision, Jack Davis can customize a plan to meet every need. Now available Medicare plans for seniors. Contact Paige Davis at 931-492-9284 today for Medicare Supplement, Medicare Advantage, and prescription drug plan insurance. Serving Lawrence and surrounding counties since 1987, call the team at Jack Davis Insurance today at 931-242-5225.
Are you looking for the perfect refrigerator? What about a new stove or washer or dryer? It only makes sense to shop at the one place that specializes in appliances, top to bottom, big or small. And that's Kelly Appliance in Lawrenceburg. Kelly Appliance is home to all major name brands, including LG. LG makes life good with a full selection of refrigerators, cooking appliances, dishwashers, microwaves, and more, including appliances made right here in Tennessee. Family owned and family operated. Stop by Kelly Appliance on Jerry Street in Lawrenceburg today.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
And I'd like to welcome everybody in here to this Monday edition of the Mark My Words College Sports Show here on the X Sports Network. I'm your host, Michael Marks. Hope that everybody had a great holiday season last week. Got to spend some time with some family, some friends. Got to watch some football, all kinds of good stuff. So this episode, we are just going to be looking at all the bowl action. We're going to look at the games that happened last week. We're going to look at the college football playoff first round, break down some of those games, and then we're going to look at the games coming up this week. We've got more playoff games. We've got some of the bigger bowl games, and then as always, college football is always going to have a bunch of news, and that's where we will start this episode real quick. Let me pull up. Obviously, the big headline, Michigan has found their man. Michigan expected to hire longtime Utah coach Kyle Whittingham. Pete Nikos reported this was, I believe, on Saturday that this kind of announcement started coming out. I think it's a really interesting move, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of strange, Whittingham, kind of just stepping aside and allowing Utah to kind of, I guess, evolve. And, I saw Kyle Whittingham's departure as a kind of, I'm not sure what a great coach to compare it to be, because he's 66 years old, so in the coaching realm, he's experienced, but not necessarily old yet. But a guy that, wasn't a fan of NIL, wasn't a fan of the transfer portal. I thought he was just going to step aside and, kind of accept, to some degree, accept that the game had passed him up. Well, that obviously is not the case. He's taking a bigger and better job, kind of Funny enough, exactly what the last Utah head coach did, but now that was Urban Meyer back in 2004. So, they got 21 years of Whittingham. So I think they're going to be pleased with that. USF quarterback Byron Brown plans to enter the NCAA transfer portal. Hayes Fawcett reported Brown totaled 4,166 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions this season. He's going to be the most highly sought-after quarterback in the portal. But with some of the portal moves that are going on in the Plains, I would assume he's just going to follow Alex Golesh to Auburn. And, him in that offense, one more time, even more experience with SEC talent to the outside, not American Conference talent. Nothing against the American, but, we'll talk about them in a little bit. Could Byron Brown be a dark horse Heisman candidate already in December? That is to be determined. Notre Dame and USC have failed to reach an agreement to extend their historic series. Administrators plan to work towards restarting the series as soon as 2030. You can point the fingers. Both sides are in the wrong here. One, we'll look at Notre Dame's side. They don't want to join a conference, so they're going to lose a bunch of rivalries. With the way the college football landscape is changing with this new 12-team playoff and with everybody going to a 9-game conference schedule, it's going to sort of move teams like Notre Dame out because most conferences are going to require you to play your 9 conference games and then one other power opponent. Well, a bunch of teams in the SEC already have that opponent locked in. You're not going to see teams like Florida, especially after what's happened the past couple of years there. Florida State's going to be the only non-conference opponent they play. Clemson, they're going to keep South Carolina. Louisville and Kentucky. Georgia and Georgia Tech. Those will be rivalries that stay, but they're not going to add another game in there. So teams like you, and then for USC, for example, now in the Big Ten, play 9 conference games does not require one Power 4 or Notre Dame non-conference game. So they're not going to play it because you look at the playoff this year. It's some of the teams and some of the schedules. We'll go from the top down and just look at some of the schedules these teams had, and you'll probably start to see maybe a bit of a trend. We'll go to the playoff. All right, let's start with the bottom of the barrel. James Madison, their schedule this year. Now they did schedule somewhat difficult with the Louisville game, but they're one loss. But other than that, Weber State, Liberties, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, UL Lafayette, Old Dominion, Texas State, Marshall, App State, Washington State, Coastal Carolina, Troy, and then that Oregon game in the playoff. Obviously, they're not in a conference where they're going to need to schedule hard. But then you look at Oregon in the Big Ten. The Big Ten has teams like Ohio State, Indiana, Michigan, USC, Iowa, Illinois, Minnesota, teams like that. You look at Oregon's schedule, well, their non-conference Power 4 game, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State was awful this year. I don't know if you recall, but they fired their head coach because, a 25-year head coach, because it was that bad. They won one football game of the entire season. One. And that one was against UT Martin, an FCS team. Nothing against UT Martin, but they're at a different level. But they're Big Ten games for Oregon. Northwestern, who just won their bowl game we'll talk about that one in a little bit, finished 7-6. Penn State 7-6. Indiana 13-0, perfect. Number 1 team in the country. Rutgers, did they finish with a winning record? I think they may have gotten a bowl game. No, they didn't. They won 5 games. So a 5-7 team. That's a nice win. You scrape by a Wisconsin team that started winning some games there at the end of the season, but only won 4 games. And then you go to Iowa. They won 8 games. That was a pretty nice win, a 2-point win. Minnesota, I believe they finished 7-6. Let me check. Minnesota finished 8-5. So, I guess you could say a decent win there. Beat a good USC team. They have 9 wins. Washington has 8 wins. But really, their schedule didn't ramp up till the end of the season, and by that point, most of those teams, the USCs, the Washingtons, were out of the playoff at that point. Ole Miss, they got a favorable SEC schedule. In a year where the SEC was had some dominant teams. The Georgias, the Bamas, the A&Ms. Texas was good. Oklahoma was good. Vanderbilt was good. And Ole Miss avoided most of those teams. Ole Miss's SEC schedule went Kentucky, not that great. Arkansas was bad. LSU was not great. Georgia was good, but that's their one loss. They did get a good win over Oklahoma. South Carolina, I don't really know how to judge them. Florida was all right, iffy, bad, I don't know. Kind of just depends on what week you watch them. A good win over Mississippi State and then Tulane. But, Ole Miss got a really favorable SEC schedule. And the same can be said for Texas A&M. Their 8 conference games were the bottom 7 in the SEC and Texas. And that was their one loss. So, those are just a couple examples of you're not going to schedule harder than you have to because it's, look at Notre Dame. They lost 2 games to 2 very good teams that were in the playoff. Well, they're out. BYU only lost 2 games to the same team that is number 4 in the country right now, and they're out. So there's no incentive for big schools to play big games anymore, and that incentive is going to ruin week 1. But you used to have all these big games week 1, and now you're going to watch your favorite team play an FCS opponent, beat them by a drum by 60 points, and then have to wait till week 4 when conference games really ramp up to watch college football. Biff Poggi has interviewed for the vacant Michigan head coaching opening multiple times, he announced. He says, and I quote, "I know what the hell I'm doing." I think he's got a point. He's won 2 games at Michigan, and honestly, it was probably some of the better looks their offense earlier in the season was some of the best looks their offense got. Obviously, Auburn is the early school to look at when talking to USF quarterback Byron Brown. Gio Lopez is expected to return to North Carolina next year in 2026. Dylan Stewart, a star South Carolina edge rusher, announces he will return next season. Tommy Castellanos, the Florida State quarterback, has announced he will declare for the NFL draft. Texas running back Quintravion Wisner plans to enter the NCAA transfer portal. Wisner led the Longhorns in rushing this season, just under 600 yards. Him and C.J. Baxter both entered the portal. Their rushing game was awful this year, and this shows that they don't see any future with it, so they're looking elsewhere, because these are Baxter and Wisner, both extremely talented running backs. So we'll see where they end up. Michigan quarterback Bryce Underwood on his initial reaction to the Wolverines hiring Kyle Whittingham. I was actually pretty excited, really excited to see what he does for the University of Michigan. Seems like he's sticking around, so it could be a good look there. Michigan is working to hire BYU defensive coordinator Jay Hill, sources say. No deal has been agreed to, but new Michigan head coach Kyle Whittingham is targeting Hill, his former Utah assistant. And Whittingham was at BYU, I believe played at BYU, and now going for his old buddy Jay Hill. Michigan has already moved on from their offensive coordinator, so maybe Whittingham has got a little bit of momentum going on this sort of hype train, I guess you could say. So let's break into talking about some football games. Let's look at the first round of the playoff first. These were last Friday and Saturday. We will start with that game on Friday night. Alabama, what a win, 34-24 over Oklahoma, a matchup we had seen earlier this year and got a different result. And you know what? I think it made the game a little more entertaining to watch. Sometimes some matchups, if we get again, like one that we're going to talk about in a minute, they kind of stink. This one, I think, was one we kind of needed because Alabama looked completely different in that game in Tuscaloosa than they did in this game in Norman. Ty Simpson, 18 of 29, 231, and 2 touchdowns. Hill, 43 rushing yards and a touchdown. Not a lot of big plays on the ground. Alabama really didn't have that many yards of offense, only 260 yards. But their defense did what they needed to do. And look, Alabama was down 17-0 early in the second quarter of this one, and then went on to outscore Oklahoma 34-7 in the last 3 quarters. I mean, Oklahoma teams were struggling to get to 20 against Oklahoma, much less 30 in 3 quarters. Sooners, John Mateer, if you look at his numbers, he threw for 307 yards. That's okay. 2 touchdowns and a pick. No running game whatsoever. Blaylock, Mateer, Robinson didn't matter. You weren't going nowhere. Deion Burks had a couple of big catches, but other than that, nothing. Satania, 2 catches for 17 yards on 6 targets. I mean, Alabama had him locked down, and that's your biggest play. Tate Sandell, who was the best kicker in the nation for the regular season, and then went in his home stadium, went 1 for 3. Kind of a sucky inning, so to say, for Oklahoma. But listen, we can talk about this, that, and the other. I think we need to talk about Oklahoma and John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle and Jaden Ott and all that stuff that happened during the offseason, because Oklahoma, despite having a really tough schedule going into last season, there was a lot of hope there that, because last year their offense was terrible. It was not, well, it had its moments, but it was not good last year. And in turn, Oklahoma was not a very good team last year. This year, you look early in the season, they're putting up some points in spots, but by the middle of really by that Texas game, happened second week in October, you kind of knew that this Oklahoma team didn't have it on offense. And obviously there was the Mateer injury, but that's been so long ago now that I think he's fine, and I just think that he can't throw a football. I mean, he did not throw 2 passes in that game from the same arm angle consecutively, and I think it was making it hard on his receivers. These guys are supposed to come in to make this offense unstoppable, and their offense was the reason that they'll be going home early. If they had any semblance of a top 40 offense, nothing crazy, somewhere around the level of Alabama's, they would have been fine. They would probably still be playing. We'd probably talking about them favored over would they be able to slow Indiana down? Would Indiana be able to score on them? But again, we're talking about them going home and being a huge disappointment because their offense couldn't figure things out in the games that it mattered most. Because you look at Oklahoma this year and their scoring totals. And I'm not going to do their game against an FCS opponent. No, that FCS opponent is in the FCS championship game, but 24, and I'll just do their power opponent games. 24, 24, 23, 6, 26, 26, 33, 23, 17, 17, 24. They scored 30 once, and that was against Tennessee, who had by far the worst defense in the SEC this year. So, and hey, props to Alabama. That was the first road win for a team in the 12-team playoff, and who else but Alabama? Miami took down Texas A&M 10-3. Funny enough, I think we kind of got a bit of a flip. I think what we thought was going to come from the Alabama-Oklahoma game is what we ended up getting from the Texas-Miami game. There was no points in the first half of this game. If you had a long night that Friday night and didn't wake up till 2 p.m. the next day, you didn't miss anything. Carson Beck in the entire game threw for 100 yards and 1 touchdown. Mark Fletcher, if Miami did not have him, they probably would not have scored a point. 17 carries, 172 yards, did not get in the end zone. Their 1 touchdown play was like a 12-yard catch or like a 2-yard pass to Malachi Toney, who, he had like 30 yards of offense, but there was not a lot of offense in this game. Combined, you had about 600 yards between the two teams, and boy, Marcel Reed. Everybody wanted Heisman, everybody wanted this, that, and the other for him, and he got into a big game, threw for 230 yards. All right, completion percentage, I guess. I mean, over 50%, but not 75. 2 interceptions, was sacked 7 times. Reuben Bain had his way the entire game. He got in the back. He had 3 sacks. 3 sacks. That is insane. Messidor had a sack and a half. Jacoby Thomas, former Tennessee guy, went in there and got a sack. So, just really disappointing for A&M to have such a good season. It's perfect all the way until Thanksgiving, and you lose your last 2 games. And now the greatest Texas A&M team, at least of the 21st century, is going to be largely forgotten because when it came to the chopping block, they weren't ready. 2 kind of duds of games. We'll talk about the Ole Miss Tulane game, and this is the reason. And listen, I'm not going to go back and say that a group of 5 team does not deserve to be in the playoff, because I think James Madison, we'll talk about that one in a little bit. I think they actually showed something. But if it's a matchup, if the rematch is going to be a matchup we have seen in the regular season, like this Tulane Ole Miss game that was almost the exact same score, it doesn't need to happen because it's keeping it and this isn't me preaching for Notre Dame or BYU or Georgia Tech or Vandy or Texas, but every single one of those teams would have given us a better game than this, and it sucks because the only momentum Tulane had was when they got a fumble there at the end of the first half and did nothing with it. Jake Retzloff, 306 passing yards. Add another 25 on the ground, threw for a touchdown and a pick. But listen, they'd get yards and then they would turn it over or they would punt. Retzloff had three turnovers, had a pick and 2 fumbles. Chambliss looked good. He got banged up a little bit. Then they bring Austin Simmons in, the human turnover, and in the 8 plays he played, he did turn the ball over, had that fumble, but once they got him back, Lacey back, who was dealing with a bit of a shoulder thing, they looked fine, and they absolutely cruised to a win. Tulane put a touchdown up there late in the fourth quarter, but, there was 4 minutes left. What was going to happen there? Now, a bit of a different narrative here. This is a reason I think you should allow a group of 5 teams in the playoff, because JMU, despite losing by 17, outscored Oregon in the second half. It was a rough first half, but I think it could happen. That Oregon team is really good. Maybe you rework it where the 12th playing the 11 or something. I don't know how you would rework it, but you could have a team win a game like this. Dante Moore was slinging it all over the yard. 19 to 27, 313 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. Davidson, 90 rushing yards. De'Aaron Hill, 76 rushing yards, and a touchdown. It was all Oregon in this one until the second half, where the offense did get going a little bit for JMU. Again, Barnett, 273 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wayne Knight, 110 rushing yards. Barnett had 45 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So over 310 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was a good game, but this Oregon team is really good, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. First round of the playoff, if I had to give it a letter grade, I'd probably say like a C-. The Alabama-Oklahoma game was really good. That was a great game. It was fun. The Miami-Texas A&M game and the Tulane-Ole Miss game, I sort of regret watching. And to be fair, the James Madison-Oregon game felt over by halftime, so I turned on the Bears and the Packers. That was a much better game and ended. That was a classic. We'll probably talk about that one on some shows this week here. But this opening round of the playoff kind of stunk. And the one game in my eyes that really wasn't a stinker was the game I'd say the least people were excited for. Well, maybe the most, I don't know. Because obviously there weren't a lot of people hyped up about the Tulane-Ole Miss game, but, we'd already seen Oklahoma-Alabama. We didn't think there was any chance Alabama wins. Everybody had their coach shipped off, their quarterback shipped off, this, that, and the other. And they won. It's kind of crazy to look at Alabama as the underdog, but it's kind of everybody versus them, and they're not the number 1 team in the country anymore. Let's take a look at some of the bowl action of the week. So this is the games from the 19th all the way up to yesterday. There weren't any bowl games yesterday, obviously, but I guess the 19th to the 27th, technically. The Myrtle Beach Bowl, Western Michigan 41-6 over Kennesaw State. I had picked Kennesaw to win that one. I thought that conference championship, a lot of momentum, and they got... it sort of felt like they just ran into a brick wall. And that brick wall, his name was Buckley. 174 yards on the ground for him. Brock Lowry had a decent game through the air, but this was a dominant game by the Broncos on the ground. 303 yards of rushing, 423 yards of offense. Forced a bunch of turnovers and controlled the clock. That's how you win games. You force a couple of interceptions from Odom. He fumbled a couple of times. That's not going to be a good recipe for winning many games for Kennesaw State. Now, the Gasparilla Bowl, one I thought was going to be pretty close, but again, NC State, man, what a game. CJ Bailey, 14 to 25, 221, and 2 touchdowns. Scott had 108 rushing yards. CJ Bailey didn't have a single rushing yard, but did have a 14-yard touchdown, I believe. Did have a touchdown run in that game, was sacked a couple of times as well. had a great game. The Memphis offense was not allowed to get going whatsoever. Lewis didn't look great. Hill didn't look great. Just a all-around tough game for Memphis. Only 154 passing yards, 150 rushing yards. They were very even, but when you have a bunch of turnovers, it makes it hard to win some games. Great win for NC State. We just talked about the playoff games. The famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Washington State 34, Utah State 21. Eckhouse, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. I don't know if he helped his case, hurt his case, added another 30 yards on the ground. It was, yardage-wise, a dominant performance by Washington State. I mean, almost tripled Utah State. They had 250 yards of offense. Washington State had 650 yards. Almost 400 passing, 250 rushing, 30 first downs. I mean, they had 3 more penalties, or 3 more turnovers than Utah State. But just dominated them. 35 more total plays of offense. I mean, just great game for Washington State. And now with Kirby Moore coming in to be the to be the head coach, I would assume that you're probably going to get Bo Pabula. Look out for Washington State. Have another great quarterback. The Boca Raton Bowl, Louisville 27, Toledo 22. The Rockets kind of got stuck in a game where, they were stuck in a game against an ACC opponent when the quarterback you had all year, in Gleason, wasn't going to be able to go in this game. Left you with the backup. He didn't do great. Weren't able to really run the ball as well. About 160 yards on the ground, 160 yards through the air. It was also a very even game from Louisville. They were just able to get it done in the end. Miller Moss had a great game, did not turn the ball over, which was huge. And then the running game, Isaac Brown, Keywan Brown, 112 yards, no touchdowns, and a fumble for Keywan Brown. And then Isaac Brown, 10 carries, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's Louisville football, or at least with this year's roster. With those running backs, you shouldn't have to throw the ball more than 20 times in a game. And, you're missing your best receiver for Louisville. It was going to be a tough, to pass the ball after that. But, man, what a Bell. Chris Bell, what a middle of the season he had. If they would have had him, probably a more dominant win, but a good win nonetheless for Louisville. The New Orleans Bowl, Western Kentucky 27, Southern Miss 16. I guess you could say there was a lot of offense in this one, but it was by a bunch of different parties. McIver had 200 yards, Tisdale had 60 yards. A couple of turnovers for Western Kentucky, but that didn't end up being too big of a problem for them in the end. The running backs did really good. Parrish had a rushing touchdown. Hart had a rushing touchdown. McIver even got one. For the Golden Eagles, just didn't get the offense going. And that's really what it's come down to in a bunch of these games. And the one we're going to talk about next is just not getting the offense going. With the Frisco Bowl, Ohio. Ohio 17, UNLV 10. I was looking ahead at my games that we got coming up. I saw offense in this one because you're looking at a Ohio team whose coach had been fired for having relationships with students, with undergrads, for showing up to, I believe they were booster events, intoxicated, and with a woman that wasn't his wife, and his claim that they were already split up. But nonetheless, a lot of interesting turmoil in the Ohio locker room, and that didn't bother them one bit. Getting a great win over a UNLV team that really struggled. Ohio's defense was awesome. Anthony Calandria was not able to get anything going. Neither was Thomas in the rushing game. Parker Navarro, 143 passing yards and an interception, but was able to add a touchdown on the ground, 149 yards from Bangura. Ohio. It's an interesting season for the Bobcats because you look and, early in the season they're getting wins against West Virginia, and then you look middle of the season they're losing to Ball State, and then they really cleaned it up there in the back half of the season. The only game they lost after that Ball State game was to Western Michigan, who was the best team in that conference. It was just a tough start to the year with the losses to Rutgers and Ohio State. It was a really good Ohio team, though. The Hawaii Bowl, which was probably so far, I'd say maybe the best, maybe the second best bowl game that we've had. And listen, man, in games where Cal had turnover problems, they lost. They didn't have turnover problems in this one. they just didn't have enough there at the end. Weaver, the backup quarterback from Canada for Hawaii, comes in with 10 seconds to go, throws a touchdown pass, or he was the backup quarterback through to, I think it was Barfield, or Cynical, that's who it was. It was Cynical that caught that last touchdown pass, and I believe he was like from Canada or something like that. So, really cool story there. Great comeback win for Hawaii. Timmy Chang finished the year at 9-4. I mean, kind of a cool symbolic start and end of the year. For Hawaii, they started the year with a win against Stanford, and they finished the year with a win against Cal. Both those games, funny enough, in Hawaii, in their home stadium. Great season for Hawaii, and hopefully that they can start winning games consistently, because I think college football is more fun when Hawaii is good, because then you have an incentive to stay up till 1:30, 2:30 in the morning watching a football game with Hawaii in it, because they're good. Years that they won 4 games, it wasn't as fun because you're just going to watch somebody go out there and beat them like a drum. The game above Sports Bowl. This was the day after Christmas. This is last Friday. Northwestern 34, Central Michigan 7. The Wildcats got the offense going. Preston Stone, 220 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Komalafe, 55 rushing yards and a touchdown. It's more of a passing game for Northwestern, and they took control of this one early. We're up 21-0 at halftime, 34-0 after 3. CMU got a touchdown there in the 4th, but that game was far from a ball game. I'll tell you what was a good game. Minnesota and New Mexico. These were 2 offenses that have struggled through all the season, and it took extra football to determine a winner. But the case in this one for New Mexico, you can't have a game and go all the way to overtime and you total 204 yards of offense. There was 450 yards of offense total in this entire game. Teams combined for about 230 through the air, about 220 on the ground. Was not good. I mean, neither team's offense was great. Lindsey was at least accurate, consistent. Taylor had a great game on the ground, 116 rushing yards and a touchdown. That touchdown pass to Smith there at the end. I mean, Drake Lindsey put that ball on a dime. Was a beautiful catch, great ball game, and a great win for Minnesota. And hey, listen, they came out of nowhere, but the Golden Gophers finished with 8 wins this year. Great job by PJ Fleck. UTSA getting a big win in the First Responder Bowl, 57-20 over FIU. For the Roadrunners, because they did a lot of that. Owen McCown, his best game of the year by far, 18-28, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns on the ground from Henderson, 1 from Dono, 1 from Peterson. All around great game offensively for the Roadrunners. Golden Panthers, on the other hand, struggled. Had some turnovers, didn't have a lot of yardage. Just was not going to be a great game for them. Now the Military Bowl, probably up to this point, maybe the most confusing result to a bowl game. Pitt looked awful, and this result of the result of this game made me want to come in here and kind of present a narrative that maybe the ACC needs to be viewed as below the Sun Belt, below Conference USA. I mean, obviously all satirical, but man, the ACC was terrible this year. I mean, your champ Duke's playing in the Sun Bowl, which, don't get me wrong, the Sun Bowl's not bad. I mean, you got 2 pretty good teams in it this year, but typically the Sun Bowl's not one you're watching for great football and conference champions. Pitt, who is seen as one of the better teams, goes and plays East Carolina in a bowl game that you could say that didn't matter, but you had a young freshman quarterback that had played all year, had been awesome all year, still playing, and you throw up a dud. Mason Heinzel sacked 4 times, had the pick, the worst play ever, maybe, in that game. Pitt's offense, you know what, I think after they lost that game to Miami, they didn't care what happened the rest of the season, because they had a playoff in their mind. If they beat Miami and they I believe it would have been, beat Virginia, they were in the playoff, realistically. And after that, since that didn't happen, they didn't care. But hey, it wasn't like ECU did anything better. They didn't even have 250 yards of offense. You had 375, but you had 5 turnovers. It's not going to win you. When you have more turnovers than penalties, you're going to lose that game. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter because you're not going to play a perfectly clean game unless you're playing against Tennessee in Knoxville, because they don't get any penalty calls up there. But if you have 5 penalties, 3 turnovers, or 5 turnovers and 3 penalties, you're going to lose that game. The Fenway Bowl, some people's preseason national championship picks, Penn State and Clemson. The Nittany Lions get the win 22-10. And man, what a finish to the season for Terry Smith. 4 straight wins over Michigan State, Nebraska, Rutgers. Clemson has just as many wins as an underdog as the Penn State head coach, as James Franklin had. One, Grunkemeyer had a great game, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns. The running game with Martin, 101 yards, 5 yards a carry. I mean, it was a great game for Penn State. Their defense was awesome. Did not allow anything to get going for that Clemson offense. I mean, Klubnik had 40 pass attempts. Did not get over 200 passing yards. Was sacked 4 times. Nobody averaged more than 3.2 yards a carry, and that guy had 10 carries. I mean, I don't think anybody is happier for this season to be over than these two teams, so they can kind of recap and get back to where they wanted to be, because Penn State was a play away from the national championship last year. Clemson was in the playoff last year, so definitely want to get back to things like that. Another confusing outcome, Army over UConn 41-16. Now, obviously, UConn no Jim Mora, as he's moved on to Colorado State, no Fagnano, so you were going to struggle. But I didn't expect it to be this bad, because Cam Edwards still played. He had 108 yards and a touchdown. Man, Army. Whew. 368 on the ground. I mean, their top 3 rushers averaged 14.2 yards a carry with 2 touchdowns. That guy had 12 carries, 6.2 yards a carry, and 5.4 yards a carry. They had 5 rushing touchdowns, ton of attempts, ton of yards. Just a great game. Army did what they wanted to do on that one, and gets a nice win over UConn in Fenway Park. Now, America's national championship, the People's Champion, as some people have called it, the People's Bowl. The Pop-Tart Bowl, BYU over Georgia Tech 25-21. And listen, Georgia Tech's season ended kind of the way, we'll say the regular season ended in sort of the same way that that kind of their playoff hopes ended, with an interception for Haynes King. A great win for BYU. Real quick, we are going to take a break here on the X Sports Network. We will be back to break down the rest of these bowl games and take a look at round 2 of the college football playoff. That will be next.
Going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.
LUS is committed to our customers, from providing and maintaining energy-efficient utility services to friendly, helpful customer service. LUS is there. At LUS, we're always challenging everything we know, every day. We strive to improve efficiency and reliability while focusing on our responsibility to our customers and the community. It's our promise to provide dependable service to our customers every time. Because we don't just work in Lawrence County, we live here too.
Make your lawn a legacy. At Legacy Lawn and Landscapes, we put more than 16 years of experience into your goals. We won't meet your expectations, we'll exceed them. We offer consultation, installation, maintenance, hardscapes, construction, and land clearing services. Owner John and Jamie Brewer, with their team, are dedicated to providing the highest quality landscape services to commercial and residential clients in Middle Tennessee. Service, teamwork, results. That's how you leave a legacy.
Are you looking for a non-factory job environment? Livingstone Freight Solutions is a 3PL company that began managing warehouses in Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi. With our multiple shifts and experienced management team, our goal is to give you, as an employee, a safe family work environment and competitive wages. We offer a wide variety of employment opportunities, from forklift drivers to management level positions. We also strive to offer a competitive benefit package and PTO options. For more information or to apply, visit us at livingstonefs.com or give us a call at 931-269-3255.
going the distance with local sports. This is the X Sports Network.